Well, getting to the MTC, I remember just, you know, before getting to Mexico City MTC, I took a lot of shots. You had to get ready for your vaccines, for things. So I was kind of like sketched out, like, oh, I hope I don't get really sick. And so the Mexico City MTC, I remember saying goodbye to my parents. I didn't get like any sleep that night. I got like maybe 2 hours. I had to get up at like 3:30, and I was up just talking to my parents all night. And so my flight was at like 6 or something. But I remember going through, or flying by myself, and kind of just saying, getting to the airport. First of all, I'm jumping ahead, but I remember getting to the airport. My mom's trying to hold back her tears, and that it always makes it hard for, you know, because I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and so I'm her youngest, and so she was kind of really sad actually to let me go for a little bit, but obviously she knows for better cause. But she was sad to see me go. You know, as I said goodbye, I walked through the security and I waved one last time, and my mom started wiping away her tears, and that kind of started getting to me a little bit. And then my dad just said, "Good luck, son," basically. But he said he loved me too. So that was hard, but I actually found a missionary at the airport who was there. He just did the same thing as me, so we were able to talk and kind of just be like, man, like, this is crazy, going to Mexico City together. Started talking. It was good to have a flying buddy, and it's usually about the same for everyone else. And just flying there, so many thoughts just on the plane ride going to Mexico City, just like, you know, what did I get myself into? Or what's Chicago like? What's Mexico like? How am I going to learn Spanish in 6 weeks at the MTC? You know, just all those thoughts come to mind, but there's always that very peaceful feeling just telling you that everything's going to be okay. You know, every time I got nervous, every time I got anxious, every time I just didn't think I was capable of serving a mission, the Spirit always told me that it's going to be okay. And so definitely the Spirit and Heavenly Father were always there for me. You know, He knew what I was going to be going through. And I've heard the same thing from other missionaries, but once I got to Mexico, it was kind of a relief that I made it there, but I still had to go through, security, so I had to go through all that good stuff. Tons of missionaries were there too, but the craziest thing was just getting on that bus in Mexico City. Like, the people who drive in Mexico City, anyone who served there, everyone who's been there for the MTC, just know what I'm talking about, but they drive insane. I don't know how they do it. It's just chaotic. There's like no space between cars when you're driving. You're about this far away from the next car. I remember pulling out of the airport, and I remember cars just going by so fast. And then I just see our bus just slowly sneak out, and cars are still flying by. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? I started getting really nervous, and I looked to my right as we're turning left, and I can see the cars, they're all stopped. And they all just came to a complete stop as the people were just flying by, probably going about 65, 75 miles an hour. And I was like, no way. And then he just starts driving, and it was normal. Just like that. He just forced his way out into the highway like it was no big deal. And I remember driving there. I remember seeing I still have the memories just in my mind, just seeing all of the houses in Mexico. Everything was just so close together. There were so many people. Like I said, the cars were so close together, I could literally pull down the window, reach out, and touch the car next to me without even putting in any effort. That's how close the cars were. And I was just freaked out. I was like, how am I going to get there safely? And then it's about a 45-minute drive there, so it was really cool being able to see Mexico City. It's kind of what it's like. There's tons of different colors. And then, eventually we went to the Mexico City MTC, and there's tons of security, you know, huge fence all the way around. I think it's about 90 acres or so. It's a huge facility, so much stuff to do there. I absolutely love the Mexico City MTC. And I remember just pulling up and just like, all right, well, go get something to eat, get you in your new house, you'll meet your companion, and you'll be good to go. And I just felt like a herd of sheep just being going to different parts of orientation in the Mexico City MTC. And the MTC was awesome. You know, I did love it, but it was challenging. You know, you face a lot in the MTC. You face homesickness. For me, some people don't, but I face homesickness. I physically got sick there. There was a virus that went around It just seemed like everyone got sick. And I had to learn the language. In 6 weeks, I remember the second day of the MTC, I had to teach a lesson. My second day, I didn't know anything, and but just being submersed in that is the best way to learn the language. And it was very hard at first because you're just studying, you're just in the books, you're in class all day, just doing your best to teach, learn the language and the grammar and everything of Spanish, and it was hard, but I loved it. I learned so much there. The people that I was surrounded with were just amazing. I loved my companion so much. He helped me out a ton in the Mexico City MTC. He was very smart. He took, I think, 4 years of Spanish in high school, so he knew his stuff. So I just asked him a ton. He taught the majority of the first couple of lessons. But you learn a lot, and it was an amazing experience. And I was actually in the MTC for Christmas as well. And I was there for 3 holidays. I was there for a Mexican holiday called, I can't remember, it's been a while. It's like Dia de los Reyes or something like that. It's like Three Kings Day. And in Mexico, that's what it's called in English, I'm pretty sure. And basically just, I don't know, I don't really understand the holiday, but basically there's, I don't know if I need to explain it or not, but we had it in the MTC. It was really cool to experience the Mexican culture because for that, it's basically just like this flavored bread that they give you. It's called pan dulce in Spanish. They just give you that, and they have like little plastic, it's going to sound weird explaining it, but they have little plastic baby Jesuses that they put in the cake, and they cut it up into slices and they give it out. And so whoever has that baby Jesus, I could be wrong, but as far as I remember, this is what happened. Whoever ends up with the baby Jesus ends up having to throw a party in a month. And it was in January, the holiday, and they had to throw the party in February. And basically the guy who had to host it, whoever got the plastic baby Jesus. And just way random. I don't really know. And they usually make tamales or something like that for the party, but they just have people over, and I don't know. But that's what my teacher, he explained to me. So I just thought it was very, very strange, but pretty awesome. At the same time, I was also there for Christmas, like I said, and also New Year's, and then Three Kings Day. Those are 3 holidays I was there for. I literally called my family a week later. I got to the MTC of December 17th, 2014. And so literally a week later, I just called my family, and I just said, hey, how's it going? And I told them about my week-long experience on the mission. So it was pretty fun, but I had to call them through something called, the Tall Lab, where it's a computer. That's where you learn Spanish. And so they just hooked up a headset. I called home through a computer, and it was honestly really hard because like the microphone that I was using, it always echoed. You know, it was just so, I was repeating myself so much. It was so hard to concentrate, but only had 30 minutes to call my family, so it was just good to hear from them, hear their voices. But I wanted to be at home with my family, obviously, for Christmas. But the Lord comforted me a lot that day. But also to this day, New Year's in Mexico City is still the best New Year's that I've ever been to, or been a part of, I should say. Just because it's so loud. There's so many fireworks for just wherever you look. And it was pretty cool because there's mountains right there where the Mexico City MTC is, and there's people lighting off fireworks off the mountain. Like it was beautiful. It was just crazy. It was hard to sleep that night just because it was so loud. And also the Mexico City MTC, the whole time you just hear these random, like, they sound like gunshots, but they're just shots just going off. Just fireworks or something. I don't really know what it was, but they were going off all the time. But overall, my MTC experience was amazing. I really strengthened my testimony in the Mexico City MTC, which is what I wanted, especially in the restoration, plan of salvation, and the atonement, and the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's where I really strengthened my testimony on those topics, and ultimately prepared me to go onto the field. And I still feel like I didn't have a good grip on the Spanish language, but I knew the Lord was going to help me, and I could defend my own. So I remember I was so excited to get to Chicago, you know, after being in Mexico City for 6-7 weeks. You know, I just wanted to get out. You know, I love the MTC. I love my experience there, but you just get anxious, you know, to get to the field. And I remember getting to Chicago and just being picked up, and we were there looking. All my group there was a group of 6 of us. We were looking for a mission president. We couldn't find him, and then out of nowhere we see this tall man, and he kind of just waves his hand. He's like, "Elders, come on over." And so we all went over to him, and it was crazy because in Mexico City it was like 80 degrees and just beautiful weather. But then once we get to Chicago, it was what was it? It was February 2nd when I got to Chicago of 2015. And it was snowing. It just got over a huge snowstorm in Chicago. And before I left, I remember checking the weather on the computer that it was going to be about negative 15 degrees my first day in Chicago, and that's not including the wind chill. And so I was nervous because I had my parents ship all my my winter gear that I was going to need to the mission home, so I'm not going to need in Mexico City. So when I get there, I was freezing. Oh my gosh, just walking out the airport, snow everywhere, and I remember just getting hit with this gush of wind that just went straight through me and just chilled my bones. And I was like just in instant shock of how cold it was. I had a suntan from Mexico City, and I was in a rude awakening for the weather in Chicago. But my mission president, how awesome he is, he saw that I was freezing, as we all were, and they brought lots of stuff, and he gave me his trench coat that he was wearing and that I got to wear for that day. But also our first day in the mission field, what they do, they still do it to this day for the new missionaries, is they put you on the L train. That's the first thing we did. Just packed up our stuff, and then they took all the new missionaries, took a picture, put us on the L train, gave us a Book of Mormon. And the L train, it's basically just it's short for lifted train for Chicago, and it just takes you straight downtown. They just take you straight downtown, and you start contacting people, And so that was really my first missionary, talking to real strangers in the mission at Chicago. And so I was nervous, and it's kind of funny, and it's actually really embarrassing talking about it because I had my Book of Mormon, and they're like, "All right, elders, we're gonna contact, we're gonna take the L train down to downtown. We're gonna take you to see the famous Chicago Bean. And then after that, we're gonna go back to Mission Home, have some Chicago pizza, and we're gonna spend the night there." I was like, "All right, sweet." We're all pumped to go and start talking to people. And so all of us, including our mission president, the APs, we all get on the train, and me and my best friend for the MTC, we kind of just, we got on a certain part of the L train and just sat down. We both thought that we were going to contact, or at least I did. I don't know if I remember if he did, but I thought we were going to contact in downtown Chicago. We weren't going to contact on the train. It's just looking back is so embarrassing, And then so on the way there, I talked to like one guy about the church and about the Book of Mormon. But when we got outside to the train or downtown Chicago, I asked these sister training leaders, I'm like, "Hey, when are we going to start contacting people? Where we're going to go? I'm ready." And they're like, "Elder, you were supposed to be contacting on the train." And I was like, "Oh, really? I thought you said we were only going to contact here in downtown." And they're like, "No." And so I was just so embarrassed, and then I felt so bad. And then me and my companion, we were like, "Oh my gosh," we just felt so dumb, so embarrassed. And so once we got to the Bean, we just started handing out Book of Mormons. We felt so bad. We felt like we had to make up for the work we didn't do on the train ride there. And so we really handed out a few Book of Mormons, have good conversations with tourists there, seeing the Bean and bear our testimonies. It was amazing. It got me so pumped. Then we just went back, had Chicago pizza, amazing. Talk about that more later, but it's called a night. And then the next day, woke up, and then we had our trainer meeting. We were going to meet our trainers, and I was so nervous of who my trainer was going to be. I was just scared we were going to get along. I've heard so many of those stories of people not getting along with their companions. People would just crazy stories. And my brother Derek, serving in the mission of South Chicago, he always told crazy stories, about gunshots, being shot at, all this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds crazy. I wonder if I'm gonna have an experience like that. And at the trainer meeting, this guy, he's the first guy that stands up. He gets up and starts describing his area, and he's like, we're a little bit a ways away from the city of Chicago, lots of cornfields, lots of cows, lots of farms. And it's fun trying to find the Hispanics out there, but there's lots of work to be done. And I'm just super excited. Or he does a little introduction, but I was like, okay, well, that's not me. I'm here to serve in the city of Chicago. I'm going to the South Side. I was just so fixed on that. And then my mission president, he says, Elder Metro, the guy, he says, your new missionary and your new companion is going to be Elder Katowski, which is me. And I just couldn't believe it. I was so excited. I got up, gave him a huge hug, and all he tells me, he's just like, man, I love you. I can't wait to serve with you. He just kept on saying that I love you, I love you, I love you. And I was like, man, this guy's weird. And so that was my little trainer greeting moment with my trainer. And just, I remember asking, I was like, so, what's city life like? And he's like, oh, well, it's good. I'm like, well, how close are we to the city? Are we in the city of Chicago? He's like, no, we're going to be in a place called Woodstock. It's actually a branch of Hispanics. And I was like, wait, it's not, I was just heartbroken. I was like, it's not in the city? He's like, nope, it's about an hour and a half away. So I was like, oh, all right. And because I really wanted to be in the city of Chicago. That was my dream, And got out there, and I got humbled by the Lord, that it's I'm there for Him, I'm not there for me. And that area ended up being an amazing area, and I loved it so much. And I loved my trainer. My trainer impacted me, and he's made the biggest impact on my life. And to this day, I'm very thankful for Elder Metro and everything he did for me and all the love that he showed me. I don't think I've ever laughed so much in a companionship before. We just became such good friends. And the work, it went great there. And so that was that. But I remember getting to getting to the apartment, and I didn't have any of my bedding, so I literally just slept on a bare mattress, which is like a random blanket that he found in the closet, and like a random pillow he found that smelled like they were just years old. And so I was like, oh gosh. But I loved it. It was a great experience for sure in that area. So some cool mission info about my mission. So I got to serve in basically both ends of the spectrum, mostly in my mission in terms of Spanish-speaking missionaries. So like I said, I started out in Woodstock. That's about an hour and a half northwest of the city of Chicago. Just lots of suburbs. It's really hard to find Hispanics out there. We had to go to a lot of apartment complexes, tons and tons of tracting of just the apartment complexes, and just being creative. That's probably the biggest thing that you need to do in an area like that. It's just, how can you find, those Hispanics? Where are they? And it was a very big area, just just about 15. The cities are about 15 minutes apart there. And then I went to my second area, and it's suburbs still, but it takes you about 20 minutes, depending on traffic, to get to the actual city of Chicago. And I could see the skyline and everything from my area. So that's pretty cool. Same thing, you're in suburbs, so people a lot more spread out. And so you had to do a lot of tracking. Again, working with members is key in areas like that, getting close with them, and just working your butt off, and just not being afraid of the work. And then my third area, I went to the city of Chicago, so I got closer, but I went to the north side of Chicago. And there, I lived in a Hispanic neighborhood. There are Hispanics everywhere. I didn't see, a Caucasian man for the longest time, except for obviously like district meetings with your other missionaries, but I'm not counting them. But just strangers, like I rarely saw Caucasian people when I lived in the city of Chicago, because they put the Spanish missionaries in the Spanish neighborhoods. And I loved it. I didn't have to go track that much anymore. I just got to walk out on the block. You know, as soon as I walked out from my house or where I was staying, they're just Hispanics walking by and start talking. And I loved that area so much. The work was amazing there. Lots of walking. You can bike as well, but we had a car as well. And then my other area, I went from the north side of Chicago. My next area, I went to the south side of Chicago, which is completely different than the north side of Chicago. And then in the south side of Chicago, it's not as nice. It's a lot of the bad things that you hear about Chicago happen in the south side of Chicago, like all the killings, all the murders, a lot of those things happen in the south side of Chicago. And so I was kind of nervous, but I was excited. Tons of Hispanics down there, same thing, just walk out, see Hispanics everywhere. Love that area as well. That area was pure bike. I lost like 15 pounds in 3 months there, just from biking so much in the heat and sweating all the time. And then my last area, I actually got to go to downtown Chicago. And I started in the YSA English speaking there. So that was interesting, you know, huge culture shock, just because I went from being used to about being surrounded by Hispanics 24/7 for about a year to going back to just going to extremely nice neighborhoods, being in downtown Chicago, which you really never went to except for P-Days as a Spanish missionary. It was just crazy, but I loved it so much, and I learned so much there in that area. But I was on both ends of the spectrum, so I literally started in the sticks, cornfields, cows, to ending my mission in downtown Chicago. I absolutely loved it there. You know, in downtown Chicago, there's some very famous art places to visit. There's a place called the Cloud Gate, which is also known as the bean, the big shiny silver bean that you see, you know, when you look up Chicago online, for like pictures and stuff like that. Tons of art museums to go visit. The Bears Stadium is huge. Soldier Field is awesome. There's this building called the Sears Tower, which is now known as the Willis Tower there. It's the tallest building in Chicago, if I remember right. I think it's the tallest building in the the tallest or second tallest building in all of the U.S. and second or third in the entire world. And there's this thing you can do. You can pay about $20, go to the very top of Chicago, or excuse me, go to the very top of the Willis Tower and see all of Chicago. And it's so flat. There are no mountains in sight in Chicago. It's just, you go to the very top of that building, you see the huge lake, Lake Michigan, and then you just see buildings and just open field. Like you can see it's Indiana from there, which is crazy. So that's a pretty cool thing to do down there as well. Being a Spanish-speaking missionary as well, the majority of the people that I interacted with and that I taught on my mission were Catholic. And so teaching Catholics, you just learn to love it. You know, I loved teaching them. Probably the biggest challenge that I had over my mission was church attendance. Getting people to church was just difficult, you know, because people always confess or say that they believe in God, which is awesome, you know, and everyone that I taught had a belief in God. You know, there's very few instances where I taught people that didn't, you know, even believe in God. But the best part about being speaking Spanish is everyone he speaks to believes in God, and they're very open about it. And so it was just very fun, you know, teaching them. And there's lots of similarities, but for them it's very traditional, you know, to be Catholic, and it's kind of hard for them to make that change. But just through love, through consistency, through the Spirit, you know, the Lord has ways. Then you know, that they always come along. But definitely the biggest challenge I had was getting people to church. Like I said, they always say that they believe in God, but it's always hard to get them to act, to get them to keep commitments, you know, to get them just to read a little bit, just things like that. It could be a challenge sometimes, but that was probably the biggest thing that I encountered was just, you know, they're very flaky. Sometimes the Hispanic culture or the Catholics, they can be a little flaky, and so it's just kind of hard to get those set appointments and just get them to church. It takes a lot of faith, and I understand that. But it was fun. It was a good challenge. Also, the missionary work. Biggest advice that I can give you for missionary work in Chicago is, it's a good question, but I would say to just love every minute of it and to love the people. Once you love the people, once you love the culture, and just love your mission, it is so much fun. I loved every second of my mission. Once you have the love for the people and you teach them, you can feel God's love towards them, and that's when the Spirit gets very powerful. That's when you have very powerful lessons. That's when they can really feel God's love, is through your love for them. That would be the biggest missionary advice I can give you, is just to love. Love everyone on the street, see them as a child of God, see them through the eyes of Christ, and it's going to change you, but more importantly, it's going to help you be the best tool that Heavenly Father needs you to be. And as I love the people, I felt like I had so much success on my mission. Not through baptisms necessarily, but through just inviting people to come to Christ. I love every second of my mission, and I love the people so much. And I still love the Hispanic culture to this day, and I miss it so much. It's going to change your life. And obviously working hard, bottom line. Don't be one of those missionaries that just sits in the apartment and just doesn't work hard. You can't get anything accomplished without you stepping outside and talking and opening up your mouth. But your trainer and your mission president will help you develop those skills if you're nervous about it. Everyone's naturally, confident, naturally outgoing, but the Lord uses your talents, and He'll help you develop the talents that you need to become that missionary. Also, cool thing about our mission is that we do have a temple in our mission, but it kind of depends on where you're at, where you're serving, if it's close or not, and if you have permission from the mission president to go. But you get to go once every 3 months. I'm not sure if it's changed, but when I was there, that's what it was. And every now and then you have like a Christmas temple trip or an Easter temple trip or something, and you get together as a zone and you get to go to the temple. So that's nice. And if it's near you, it's awesome. You get to take investigators there. I did that on my mission. Someone who got baptized, we took them to the temple to see. We had a lesson with them in the visitor center. Or there's no visitor center there, but we took them to a waiting room in the temple, and we were able to teach them a lesson there, and it was amazing. Definitely do that. Get your investigators to the temple. That's about it. Right now I know that in Chicago they just got done building and constructing a building downtown. So when I was there, I served in the YSA ward that met in downtown Chicago, but it was in a school. Just because there wasn't any buildings nearby for the members to go to. So there's a YSA ward, and then there was two family wards that met in that school building. So it's kind of weird going to church that's in like a elementary school or middle school. I can't remember what it was, but it's just what the church had there. So loved it. But now they just built a huge building downtown Chicago. So that's where all those wards are going to meet. And as far as I understand, they're going to be expanding or not expanding, but I guess making more wards available to go there. So there's some big plans for Chicago right now. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there for it, but I'm going to go back and visit, that ward one day in that building. So that's pretty exciting for Chicago. I would definitely recommend just doing a lot of the touristy things when you go there to Chicago, especially downtown. It's not like every day you need to live in Chicago. So I would try all the different foods that you possibly can. Giordano's is very common. It's one of the, there's two places that make or that are really good for Chicago style pizza. Giordano's and Illuminati's. It's kind of, those are the two big chains there. It's called Lou Malnati's. That's my favorite. That's one that I would pick over Giordano's any day. There's a little bit difference. It's saying Chicago style pizza, but they do a little bit different. Kind of like how, for whatever reason, like Papa Murphy's and Domino's, they do a little bit differently. Like Illuminati's, they just have a little bit more, they put, instead of just little bite-sized pieces of sausage, Illuminati's, they put a whole patty of sausage on top. and they just load their toppings, and then it's a little bit more moist as well than Giordano's. So for me, I'm a Illuminati's fan. I would pick that over Giordano's any day, but Giordano's is also amazing. I'd pick Giordano's over any normal chain in America. But over there in Chicago, it's pretty fun because either like people are like, are you Illuminati's kind of guy or are you Giordano's guy? And you're like, oh, I'm Illuminati's. Like, oh man, what? No, I like Giordano's better. And it's kind of like this little fun thing that they do there in Chicago. But there's also a place called Gino's East. Write that down. That's an amazing place to go dine out. There's so many places to go eat out in Chicago, but the thing is, it's just super expensive, so I never got to go and experience a lot of it just because you're on a missionary budget. But it's up to you. But I would definitely suggest visiting, like I said, downtown Chicago, just going throughout. There's tons of bridges that go across like a river, amazing sights. The Willis Tower, like I said, you can go. It's the tallest building in Chicago, so you can go to the very top and just see and overlook all of Chicago. It's beautiful. You can see all the way to Indiana. And lots of great places to go shop downtown. There's some pretty cool places. You can go play some tennis downtown. The beach is kind of cool. It's not the best beach, but it's pretty fun. You can go do some stuff there. And it's just beautiful. The skyline's awesome there. You can take some cool pictures. A great thing, an awesome thing about Chicago is how extreme the weather can be. So in the summers, it can get as hot as 100 degrees. It's extremely humid there, crazy percentage of humidity, because you're right on the lake. That's where Chicago is. So that just creates crazy humidity. I've never experienced humidity like that before. So here, as soon as you step outside, like it just feels like you're breathing in soup sometimes. You know, it's just extremely hot. You're sweating all the time, especially in your missionary clothes. So the summer, that's where I lost the most weight, you know, which is nice. You know, some missionaries want to do that, but it's just really, really hot in the summer. So get ready for that. Fall, it's pretty normal, but the winter, it gets, like I said, it's extreme, the weather there. The year before I got there, I heard stories of being snowed in for a week. There's missionaries who couldn't leave their apartment for a week because the snow was so bad. Like the Chicago Bears team had to get evacuated, you know, because they couldn't practice in their own facility. They had to go somewhere else to go practice. Like when I was there, same thing, crazy snowstorms. Once it snows, it just stays there forever for like months just because it's so cold. I remember my first week in the mission, you know, like I said it earlier, it gets to about -15, and with wind chill, it gets about -30. It's just crazy. I remember just trying to, when investigators call me on the phone, we're outside or knocking or tracting, whatever. You know, someone's calling, I take off my glove so I can press a button, and my hand just goes numb. It is bizarre. I've never experienced anything like the cold in Chicago. Here in Utah, it does snow, but it's not nearly as cold and as extreme as Chicago. But people are more susceptible to you, or they usually shut the door quicker on you. You know, if you're tracting, they're like, "What are you doing? Just come on in. It's freezing," and let you in. You get to teach them, or they say, "You guys are crazy," and they kind of just shut the door. But that was fun. Chicago, it's just the food there. I'll talk about the food now, just because I love the food. I miss it so much. The Chicago style pizza, in my opinion, is the best pizza ever. Looking at it, you know, look at pictures online, it looks like a casserole almost, but the deep dish Chicago style pizza is the best pizza on this planet. I don't know how they do it, but it's just super thick dough, super thick crust, and then they just pile on the toppings, tons of cheese. Just thinking about it is making me hungry. But it is so good. I don't know how to describe it. You just have to go and try it yourself. Also, Chicago-style hot dogs are awesome. There's lots of things I didn't think I would like on it. You know, it's like a poppy seed bun with peppers, tomato, lots of random things I can't even think of on the top of my head right now. But it really is so good. And there in Chicago, it's kind of funny. They look at ketchup on a hot dog almost as like a sin. It's almost how they treat it. You know, they go to some of the Chicago hot dog places in Chicago, and it says like we don't tolerate ketchup here, or I don't know why, but it's just how the culture is there. They just Chicago dog is not a Chicago dog with ketchup. They just do not like put ketchup on their Chicago dogs. I don't know, but that was pretty cool. But also, like I said earlier, being a Spanish-speaking missionary, I got to eat a ton and experience a ton of Mexican food. It was amazing. Before, I just thought, Mexican food was tacos, burritos, quesadillas. Boy, was I wrong. There's so many amazing dishes. My favorite dish that I had it's called tinga. It's kind of like a chicken with chipotle sauce put on a tostada with sour cream, salsa, really whatever you want, really. And that was my favorite. That was definitely an all-time favorite Mexican food right there. But I also love mole. Tacos obviously are amazing. There's this thing called discada that's amazing as well. It's really common in, I think, I could be wrong, it comes from Monterrey. It's a state in Mexico or city. And people from there, they just make this thing called discada, and it's just like all meats combined. It's like, what is it, ham, it's steak, they put chicken in there as well. It really just depends whatever they're feeling. They put like tons of different meats in there, they put peppers, and then you just put it in a tortilla, put some salsa on it, and it is so good. And I miss the homemade salsa there. No one can do it like they do it. The Mexicans, they make the best salsa ever. And I just talk about miss the Mexican food a ton. But it's awesome because Chicago, it's like the melting pot, of the world. So many different people from Central America, Mexico, South America. They all move to Chicago just because there's lots of opportunities there for work, and there's tons of Hispanics there, so they want to be by their family. And for example, when I was on the north side, or when I was in the suburbs, I'll start with there. The suburbs, Woodstock, like I talked about, that branch. And then I went to my second area as well, another suburb. It was mostly Mexicans that I taught. So for about a year or so, I guess I learned the Mexican Spanish. But then when I went to my third area, the north side of Chicago, that's when I almost felt like a new missionary again, because there on the north side of Chicago, I noticed there's lots of South Americans there. Like, there's lots of people from Peru and Ecuador that live on the north side of Chicago. And specifically in the ward, it's called the Chicago 4th Ward, where I served. It was one of the most diverse wards in all the mission. I met people from Mexico, all different parts and states of Mexico, and just that itself, there's a little bit different culture within the states of Mexico. And so getting to know each state, how they like their different vocab was pretty fun, but it's pretty similar just because it's Mexican Spanish. But there's also tons of people from Guatemala, tons of people from Ecuador, Peru, like I mentioned, tons of people from Honduras, and tons of people that I met that were also, what's it called? I met a few people from Panama. I met a family from Argentina. There's just so many different people that just are from so many different countries and cultures that they all just come to Chicago. And being in the Chicago 4th Ward on the north side, it was really hard to pick up their new vocab. And I was like a new missionary again, just because their accent at first was really hard. I was so used to Mexican Spanish that their accent was hard. Like a few people from the Dominican Republic I met too. They're kind of difficult to understand sometimes. So every day I just interacted with people from different countries, and at first it was hard, but I served there for 5 transfers, so that's about 8 months, and I got used to it. After my first transfer, I just started getting used to it. I started asking tons of questions to the members. I'm like, hey, so like, Mexico, they say this as this, or they say corn is this, but like I've heard you say corn is this. Is that, how do you say that? And I just started asking them tons of questions. They would help me, teach me, and I started getting used to the different accents. And it got to be really fun. Once you start to figure it out, it gets really fun. Like, you start talking to people on the streets, and you can start to figure out, oh, okay, they do this with their accent. They're probably from here. And I got pretty good at it. Also, there's tons of people from Puerto Rico, just from everywhere. And they all have different food. They all have different culture. So just going and eating with them, meeting with them, interacting with them, you just got to know a little bit of their culture. And it was so much fun. To this day, I love getting to know people's culture, because of my mission, and just seeing where they come from and why why they are the way they are. So that was amazing. Had a variety, so many different ways of food, so many different things, so many different, food that are cooked differently. I made a little cookbook, myself throughout my mission. I kind of made notes of how to cook certain ways, and it was awesome. I loved that, and definitely talking about this makes me miss Chicago a ton. So on my mission, I've kind of already talked about the food a little bit in Chicago, how there's Chicago style pizza, which is amazing, deep dish, nothing beats it. The Chicago hot dog, absolutely amazing as well, and how they frown upon ketchup there. There's no way that they allow ketchup, for Chicago dog. Like I said, in some of the stores I visited, it just said ketchup's not allowed here. But I think probably the grossest food that I ate, which I feel bad because I love Mexican food, but there's some things that I just don't like it. Some people do, some missionaries like it, but for me, probably the weirdest thing that I had was baked cactus, or it's called nopales in Spanish, and it's just like it has like this slime to it. Like for whatever reason, maybe it's better cooked another way, but the memory that I have is that they cut the cactus or whatever, got it from the store, however they cook it, and then they put it on like this pan, and then they bake it, at least how I had it, and then they take it out, and you can kind of see like this layer of slime on it, and I was like, oh no, I just do not want to eat that. And but obviously, missionary, I eat whatever's put in front of me, and I remember just eating it and just swallowing it, and just like it just slithered, and just slime just went down my throat, and I could just feel it go all the way down. I was like, oh, it just makes me kind of do shrug my shoulders, and it was just so gross. I did not like it, but I had to eat it. I don't want to offend the people that I was teaching. So it was fun. And another thing that you learn in your mission too, especially in the Hispanic culture, is if you don't eat whatever's put in front of you, then the people that are going to get offended, and that can be very hard, very bad, especially when you're trying to build a relationship and build their trust. You need to eat whatever's put in front of you. So many times on my mission, there was, if I was eating, but I was just eating kind of slow, and then people or the members or the investigators would ask me like, "Miguel, you don't like my food?" I'm like, "No, I love it." And I started eating a little bit faster, and some people, that's what their culture is. They work hard to make a good meal for you, and if you don't eat it, they get offended. Bottom line. And if you gotta eat whatever's in front of you. And the thing is though, it's kind of tricky, because if you eat fast, then they know you liked it, and so they do not hesitate to get you another full plate. And so I learned that very quick as a new missionary. I love the food, but man, I ate so much when I was a new missionary, just because I would eat the food and it was so good, and they just keep on going, and they loved it though. The more you eat, the happier they are, it seems. And so that's one thing I would suggest, is learn to eat. Eat a lot, and you're going to build a trust with the members. Members are going to love you. They love me just because I eat so much too, and I always compliment them on the food and how awesome I thought it was, and that's how you earn a lot of trust. But just make sure you work out in the morning. If you're in a bike area, you should be okay, just because you're biking around all the time. But if you're in a car area, eating a lot, make sure you exercise, because that's when it gets pretty dangerous. That's when you can start to gain a lot of weight. And also sometimes you double up for dinners. You eat a ton at one member's house, bike 10 minutes away to the next member's house, and you eat with them too. It's just how it works sometimes. It helps you build relationships with the members, to get referrals, and so just get ready. The most I ever did was 3 in a day. That was only once, and I never want to do that again. I physically felt pain from eating so much. I've never experienced that in my life, but after the first meal I was full. The second meal, about 30 minutes later, I went and I ate, and I ate a ton just because they just kept on giving me food, and I was like, oh my gosh, and I was just kind of freaking out, and I was extremely full the second time. Like there's no way I could fit anything more, but we still had another dinner appointment, and we really wanted to earn the trust of this member, and we really just wanted to work with them because she had friends who were members. And so me and my companion were just like, how are we going to do this? We're both just wanting to throw up, and we're just dying. And then we go in there, and she just opens up a huge just box of just pre-made tacos that she just got done making homemade. She's like, all right, I'll just eat up. And then after three, well, I was already full, but after three, I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And then she's like, oh, I usually eat a lot. Like, come on, I want you to eat at least 3 more. And I was just like, at that time, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, my companion, I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And so I just started eating, and then I thought I was going to explode. It was crazy. And then I remember just like doing like saying a quick lesson just because I was in pain. And then after we got out, we went out to our car afterwards, and I just like got in the car, leaned back, and I was just like, just in pain, just breathing heavily, just sweating, and just in pain. And it was in the summer, so it was like 90 degrees outside, super humid. Oh, I was dying. It was a hard day. It was definitely hard to go out and work, but I did. That was a crazy food experience. Yeah, I kind of talked about my favorite foods a little bit already, but my favorite dessert it was definitely, there's so many. I loved arroz con leche, which is just like I don't even know how to explain it in English. It's just like rice pudding, something like that. And it was really good. I love that. Easy to make, just simple, but there's always a lot of it. The members make it really good. And I also love flan. You know, that's very common, but there's nothing that beats homemade flan. It was so good. But for me personally, they also love gelatin. Yeah, they love gelatin. The Hispanic culture, and so that they treat it as like a dessert sometimes too. They give you flavored gelatin. I didn't like that. That was one dessert I didn't really like, but yeah, the Mexican food, the Hispanic food is the best. I miss it so much. Southside Chicago. I'll talk a little bit about the differences between the North and South Side Chicago. South Side, like I said, it's a lot more poor. Chicago is very segregated. It's just weird how that works. Like the South Side Chicago, you find a lot of African Americans. You find tons of Hispanics as well. They're just living in lower income houses, and so that's really just what you get used to. You know, if you serve down there, you know, the people were very humble, they're very poor. I remember where I lived, when I served there, I just walk outside every day, especially on the weekends. But even during the week, I would just see beer bottles all over the lawn. That's how I knew I was in a Hispanic neighborhood. There's just like where it says like cerveza, you know, on the bottle. It's just that's how I knew, you know. But the people, they need help there, and they're very susceptible, and they're just going through lots of problems, and they're actually very open to the missionaries there. They love God. They love that we're white missionaries walking around speaking Spanish, trying to learn their language. They just loved it. But that's usually how the South Side is. There's a lot more as far as Hispanics go, Mexicans. I was in a bike area, so you're going to learn to love the bike whenever you're in the city of Chicago. And then as well on the north side of Chicago, it just completely changes. You know, once you're about like in the middle line where it changes from north to south side, there's lots of African Americans as well. And on the west side of Chicago there are, but there's also tons of Hispanic neighborhoods. It's crazy how, you know, there's in areas or neighborhoods where it's completely, you know, Hispanic. The billboards, all the advertising, you don't see any other race except the Hispanics in a neighborhood or in an area. No one else just wants to move in. No one else wants to move out just because it's all Hispanics. And so it's crazy how that works. It's extremely, you know, segregated in Chicago. And there's also lots of Polish people. I didn't really run into them as much because I was Spanish speaking. But every now and then I would. And then on the farther north you get, the nicer it gets, the bigger the houses are. And also just the further west you go, the further away from the city, the nicer the houses are. And like the bigger the house, like I said, the bigger the houses are. And you just start to see a lot more Caucasian people. And so I spent the majority of my mission in the city of Chicago, where all the Hispanics were, and then like I said, a few suburbs, just trying to find them. But yeah, it's way segregated. It's crazy kind of how it works there in Chicago. But biking in traffic is pretty fun as well. You learn to be pretty good at maneuvering yourself and weaving it out through cars, which is pretty cool, pretty fun. Yeah, and a lot of the houses, they look the same as well. So a lot of the actual Chicago houses, there's famous Chicago brick. They're all just like brick houses, and they all just look the exact same. They're all very tall. There's about three stories per house usually. Especially in Hispanic neighborhoods, you can. There's 3 different doors you can track on. There's the basement. There's the middle, just the normal floor, the middle floor, and then there's an attic, or they just call it the second level. They make it into a little mini house. And so there's so many Hispanics that just pack in there. So there's literally 3 families that are living in one house. One again in the basement, first floor, and the second floor. And oftentimes they're related to each other. Or if they're not related to each other, they don't even know who they are. They don't even talk to them. They just kind of do their own thing. And so it's pretty fun. There's tons of people to talk to, tons of Hispanics. And when you get the contact information of somebody, you have to specifically remember to ask, what floor do they live on? Because it's not just like a normal house where people live. There's 3 families that live in one house usually, and it's usually just how the city of Chicago works. People, one family there's 3 different families that live in one house. So here's a crazy story. It was in my last area, which was in downtown Chicago, and I was what were we doing that day? We had a member appointment downtown for dinner. We're going to go eat at California Pizza Kitchen with a member from the YSA ward. And at that time, it was about, I think it was about November, December, I can't remember, but pretty sure it was in November, and that was right around the election, of President Trump. And in downtown Chicago, there's a building called the Trump Building. It's named after President Trump. And man, the Hispanics did not like Trump. And there's lots of people who did not like Trump, especially in Chicago. And so downtown, we just got done eating dinner with this member, and we kind of split our ways. We're going back to the L train to go back to our car where we parked it outside of the city. And as we're walking, I just remember it just felt like a movie. It was crazy. We're walking, we look up, and we see this helicopter kind of just hovering above us. And we're like, huh, and keep walking. And then me and my companion, we take a left, and we see this whole street is blocked off. Like there's a policewoman there guiding traffic saying, go this way, go that way, but there's no way going up the street, because that was the street that led to the Trump Building. And we can see this huge crowd of people just protesting and just saying how much they hate Trump, saying very mean, explicit things. It was just a very, just almost like an evil energy, just very negative, very bad, just not good, nothing that administration should be by. And so we went that way, and then we tried to avoid it by taking a right, by going down these stairs, and we saw more protesters coming, so we're like, oh my gosh, like we have to go through the protesters to get to the L train, so we just really know what to do. So we kept walking, and then we're in downtown Chicago, and we just take a left, just kind of, we didn't see any protesters, so we just took a left, like, all right, this has got to be good, hopefully this is clear. Then as we're walking, we're crossing this bridge, and then out of nowhere, just, we hear like this, like stomping, like, doo, 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 kind of imagine that, and we're like, oh no. And then as soon as we heard that, we see this giant crowd of people holding signs, that say awful things about Trump, just a very negative energy, people just shouting very mean things, very awful things about Trump. I'm not going to say him, obviously, but they started walking by, and so we had to get out of the way and go to the sidewalk because they're in the street. And then there's so many people just marching, and I've never experienced like a crowd like that, like a crowd where there's such negative energy coming from it, and that just the spirit just wasn't there, and we needed to get out, but the only way to get out was just to go through, and so we just kept on walking, and people were just yelling at us, just saying, Trump sucks, but in their own way, and we kept on walking, and then we got on the L train, and we tried contacting some people, but they were all just so mad. They all hated Trump. I remember asking this lady on the train, I was like, trying to spark conversation with her so I can share the gospel with her, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And she's like, just got back from a Trump rally. Did you vote for Trump? And she just kind of starts just kind of like bickering at me, and I'm being as peaceful as I possibly can. I'm like, I just try to get involved with those kinds of things. I'm a missionary, for Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints, and we had a good conversation actually, but you just feel the negative energy, but the further you got away from the city, the better it got, and it was very strange. But then, cool thing is a week later, if I remember right, or a week or two later, the Cubs won the World Series. So that was in my area, it was in my mission when that happened, and that was amazing. And so that was really cool because everyone was just in the best mood once the Cubs won the World Series, because we would go downtown and contact people, and I would just say, go Cubs, and people were like, woo, and they would just start, yelling and chanting and being all happy and excited. It was just so easy to share the gospel with those people just because they didn't really care. They were just so happy. And so it was just weird going from like a week before to just, it seems like everyone was just filled with hatred, and just hard to share the gospel with people. But it was also a great opportunity to share the gospel with people, to just people were just so outgoing and just so happy, and were just open about anything with you. So that was pretty cool. That was a pretty cool experience. I remember this one time also, me and my new missionary, we got a referral. This is in the south side of Chicago. We got a referral, and it was to an area that was not very safe, but it was a referral. We had this thing as missionaries where we need to contact that referral within 24 hours. And so we had this referral. We wanted to go visit him, but we realized where the neighborhood that he was in, and so we didn't at first. It was just, we thought we were good, but it's a very dangerous area. Learning that after we went there, but we got on our bikes. It was about 8:30 at night. We had about one more time to do one more stop by so we can find this guy home. And so me and my companion, we get to this area, and as soon as we get near, I just know, I'm just like, uh-oh, there's a reason why we don't get many referrals here, just because there's not many Hispanics here, and it's very dangerous. And we get there, we turn into the neighborhood, and there's just lots of houses that are boarded up, lots of houses that are vacant. It was just not a nice neighborhood, to say the least. And we were walking by biking by, and I look to my right, and I see this huge crowd of African American people, and they're all like talking to each other. And then as me and my companion, we bike by, he was a little bit behind me. As we bike by, they all just stop and they stare at us, every single one. There's about a group of 15 to 20 people of African Americans, and they all just stare. They just look at us ride by like we're in their neighborhood or something. And so I got really nervous. I was like, oh my gosh. Like I looked behind to see where my new missionary was, and he was just riding his bike by, and they actually yelled some things at him. I don't know what they said, but so he just kept riding his bike super fast. And so the house we were going to visit was about a few blocks away, and so we looked behind us. They weren't following us, so I'm like, all right, let's just knock this door real quick. Let's see if we can just find this guy home. And then we put our bikes on the fence really quick, and then this Hispanic comes out. We asked him if it was him. He's like, no. He's like, but I know who you're looking for. He's just not home right now. What are you guys doing here? This is a really dangerous neighborhood. And we're like, we're just missionaries, and started talking to him and see if we can get like a lesson with him. He just wasn't very interested. And so we had this thing we had this commitment between each other between me and my companion to where if we went to look for a referral, we couldn't find them, we would go knock the houses nearby, because maybe there was some reason why we were meant to be there. And as we were knocking, there was just houses that were boarded up, that were knocking on, and I was just thinking, we shouldn't be doing this. We need to go. This is too dangerous. And there's cars driving by that are just bumping just the rap music, and people are kind of just staring at us as they drive by, and I'm just oh, we need to get out of here now. And I remember just leaving out of there, and then just seeing driving by all these African Americans, and they were just staring at us. And I've never ridden my bike faster in my life. I had no idea what was going to happen. I'm pretty sure we heard gunshots that night, but we just got out of there as quick as we could and just went home. And I'm just happy we went out of there safe. But the Lord does protect you, but you need to use your common sense and be smart too. So this story, it's probably the story that's changed my life the most, and really impacted my testimony the most. So it was my second area. It's called the Westchester Second Ward, and I was going on exchanges with an elder. This elder was, I don't know if he was struggling, but at the time, looking back, he was having some problems, and I wanted to help him. I was the leader, and I just feel like I need to go on an exchange with him. And it was, I remember just getting there, and he was just on the exchange. I went to his area, and he was just so frustrated, with the work. He was just so frustrated with everything that was going on. He just felt like he wasn't learning a lot. Felt like he didn't know how to contact people. He was really frustrated with himself, and just a lot of other factors played into it. And he just told me, he's "Oh, I need your help. Can you please teach me how to contact people? I don't really know how." And so I'm all right, well, that's going to be our number one focus then for tomorrow. And so as we were planning that night, we needed to go to contact as many people as we possibly can and to just talk to everyone. And the next day, that's what we did. We were keeping track. We talked to about 60-something people, and we had lots of appointments, so we were doing awesome. We literally talked to everyone. We didn't let one guy pass without us talking to him. For the most part, obviously, in Chicago, there's only so much you can do, but there's this one time where we had this appointment with this guy. We taught this guy on his doorstep, and I don't remember what we taught him about, but we just read a little bit of the Book of Mormon with him and just testified very strongly about the Book of Mormon to him, and it was a great lesson. And then as I was coming down the steps of his porch after the lesson, after we said our goodbyes, I got a very strong prompting, clear as daylight. It was as if someone literally spoke in my head, and it was in Spanish. It was pretty cool. It was one of my first promptings I had in Spanish, and it said, the voice told me it said, "Toca más puertas," and then in English I translate to "knock more doors." And I remember just pausing. I was putting on my helmet to get back on the bike, and I just sat there and I was just thinking. I looked to my right, looked to my left, and in that neighborhood, all the houses looked the exact same. And I'm just well, what door do I knock? Where do I go? I just got a prompting to knock more doors. And so I looked to my right, felt good. So I told my companion, his name's Elder Hinsha. I said, "Hey, we need to knock more doors." And I'm I don't know why, but I really feel like that we need to go knock some doors. And he kind of looks at me. And he's kind of gives you that look "Elder, what are you talking about? We don't do tracking this area. There's so many Hispanics on the street. We just contact, And he's "All right, but whatever you say, if you have that feeling, let's do it." And so we just put our bikes, left them there, and we just started knocking the next house to the right of this house. Knocked on it, no answer. So I was okay. Walked down the steps again, went to the next house, and as I was walking up the stairs, that same voice came back, and it told me, it said, in these words, it said, "This is the house." And I remember saying that out loud to my companion. I looked over and I told him, "This is the house." And he looked at me kind of with those eyes like that I'm crazy. And that he's like, what? How do you know that? You know, kind of like that look. And he's like, oh, whatever, you know, kind of just went along with it, being a good companion. And I knocked on the door, no answer, knocked again. And I'll never forget this young man named Ricardo answered the door. He was about my age at the time, so he was about 19 years old, I think. Opens up the door and he's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, hey, how are you? And he's like, good. Well, what can I help you with? And he's an Hispanic guy. He's talking to us in English though. And my companion, Elder Hinshaw, he gets really excited. And he's just like, hey, how's it going? We're missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints, and we just want to teach you a message about Christ. We're really, and he starts going off and starts talking about our message. And he was a little bit overbearing, and he was just really excited because he was just a new missionary. He was just wanted to, so much enthusiasm, which is awesome. But Ricardo, he was just kind of looking down at the whole time. I knew there was something wrong with him. I could feel it. And he kind of, when Elder Hinch was done talking, Ricardo was just like, he's like, no, I'm good, but thanks for stopping by. And then as he's closing the door, I said, hey, wait, Ricardo, and kind of like, to get his attention. And he slowly creaks back open the door, and he looks at me. He's like, what? And I told him, I was like, Ricardo, look, I don't know why, I felt prompted to talk on your door, but me and my companion as missionaries and as representatives of Jesus Christ, we get feelings to talk to people. And as we were about to bike away just now, Ricardo, but I felt very strongly that I need to come and knock on your door. I know there's something going on in your life. I don't know what's going on, Ricardo, but I know there's something, and I know that God sent me and my companion here to help you through this, whatever's going on. Please just let us help you. And he goes like this. He looks at the ground, and then he kind of just spaces off and was just thinking for about 3 seconds. He looks back up, looks me straight in the eye, and he says, you're right. Please come in. And so it's kind of funny at that point. Elder Hinshaw looks at me, and he's just like, oh my gosh, Elder Katowski. And he's like, how'd you know? He's like whispering, but like yelling, that kind of thing. And I was just so humbled that the Lord gave me that prompting. And then he invites us to sit down in his living room. We sit down, and then his dad comes in, and his dad, I still remember to this day. He had long hair. He wasn't clean shaven necessarily. He was kind of had a little bit scruff on him. Just walks in, and he's like, who are you guys? And I kind of explained to him that we're missionaries, and we teach about Jesus Christ, and your son invited us in. And to be honest, I felt very strongly that we needed to be here, and I know God wants us to be here to help your son. And he's like, really? You felt that? And I said, I'm like, yes, I did. And he's like, well, we'll sit down, And so we sat down, and I felt prompted to teach him the plan of salvation, that everything's for a reason. And he started opening up. And to this day, I can see the love and worry that the father, his name's Ricardo as well, that he had towards his son, and that he just wanted to help his son so bad, but he just didn't know how. And I could just tell he's been trying, and he's been trying for so long to help his son, but he just didn't know what to do. And he was just, I've never seen so much love in someone's eyes before. And Ricardo, he just starts opening up to us about his problems and everything that he's going through, and he's been doubting his belief in God. And we just started talking to him, and we just testified and just said that God loves you, and taught him the plan of salvation. It went amazing. And we ended up getting a return appointment after that. And in that moment, it's just so humbling, that God gave me that prompting to be able to knock on that door that day. And unfortunately, I was kind of bummed out because I wasn't in that area to keep teaching them. But It just wasn't meant for me to teach them, I guess. But Elder Hinch and his companion, they kept on teaching that family, kept on teaching them. And I remember getting a call from Elder Hinsha about, I think it was 3 months later. It was when I was when I got transferred out of that area. And he said that they're going to be getting baptized. And in that moment, I felt so much joy. I was so happy. His Spirit overcame me. And I just never thought that something like that could happen from just knocking on a door. And he opened up the door, or excuse me, yeah, like when he opened up the door, I just didn't think that was going to happen. But I went to the baptism. The funny thing is about this is that Ricardo, the son, to this day, he's not baptized, but the two parents, his mom and dad, got baptized and are still very active. And so I remember going to their baptism, and to this day, I've never felt so much joy and happiness in my entire life. I was just tearing up. The Spirit was just so strong. You could just feel God's love for me and for them, more importantly, through the whole experience. And just that whole time, I just had that feeling I just wanted to cry. But the Spirit was just so strong, and I've never been to such a powerful baptism in my entire life. And it all started with just a prompting. But it gets better. Throughout my mission, they stayed active. They received callings. The Ward did a great job of fellowshipping them. He eventually got in the Elders Quorum presidency. I'm pretty sure that's where he got his first calling, if I remember right. And I remember him getting the Melchizedek priesthood and the Aaronic priesthood. That was amazing. And then I went home for my mission. I kept in contact with them throughout my mission. And they messaged me, and they told me they're going to be getting sealed in June. And I was so happy. They had a date to go get sealed in the temple, and they invited me. And I was so pumped. So I took off work for the weekend, got to go visit my mission again to see everyone. And just being in the celestial room for that sealing it's one of the most sacred experiences I've had in my entire life. And just seeing the happiness that the gospel brought them, seeing them cry in front of me, and telling me, Elder Gutowski, thank you so much for bringing the gospel into my life. It was one of the best moments of my entire life. Just them just saying my name and just telling me thank you for obeying that prompting and knocking on our door that day. God knew we needed it. And it's just such a special bond between me and that family. And to this day, we keep in contact. They're doing great. Ricardo's coming along. He's awesome. I love that guy and the son, both of them, and the mom. And it's just such a sacred experience that I wouldn't change anything for. I personally know that this church is true. I know that Jesus Christ lives. I know that missions, where we go, where we're assigned to labor, it's for a reason. There's only specific people that you can touch and invite to come unto Christ. And it's only through you that they're going to be able to find the gospel. I know that the Book of Mormon is the Word of God. I know that the Bible is the Word of God. I know that put together, it confounds all false doctrine. I know that the powers of the atonement are real. Whenever you need them, you can rely on them. I know that repentance is a blessing, not a burden, in that helping people come unto Christ and repent on your mission is one of the single most important lessons that you can learn in your entire life, because you're going to be teaching that for the rest of your life and applying it to yourself for the rest of your life. I know that temples are real. I know that they are of God. I know that's the Lord's house. I know there that we can receive sacred covenants and be sealed eternally as a family. And that is ultimately the best blessing, and in my opinion, to live with your family forever after this life. I know the Spirit guides you even after your mission. It's the same voice It doesn't change. But I know the Lord is aware of me and is aware of you and your mission and will put you where you need to be.